Happy Friday, everybody. Welcome to the Southside Beat. My name is Chris Halicke. A little earlier today, but we're still late, so I'll try to make it up to you guys. But thank you guys so much for joining us. If you're watching here live on our DK Pittsburgh Sports Steelers YouTube channel, we really appreciate you being here. Always love the interactions in the chat. We'll get plenty of that today. I try to at least dedicate part of the show, sometimes the entire show on Fridays, to some good Q&A with you guys. We'll definitely do that today. So thank you guys for tuning in. And if you're not, watching live or listening live, we really just appreciate you, listening and watching anyway. So yeah, B-Phil, live when I can. Appreciate it. Thank you guys so much. So definitely wanted to open up today because we didn't talk about it yesterday. I think it happened before we did yesterday's show. I can't remember. I have so many different things. We got juggling a lot of stuff right now. So I don't remember when it happened, but it definitely happened, I think, at least yesterday. Rhamondre Stevenson got a new contract with the Patriots, running back for the Patriots. And so he gets, I think, 4 years, $36 million. I don't remember the exact amount guaranteed. It wasn't too much. I think it was less than $20 million guaranteed, but with enough incentives to make the contract possibly up to $48 million. And so just basically looking at that 4 years, 36, that's an average of $9 million a year. Now, again, definitely less than half of the contract is guaranteed money. So, for sure, it's not like it's an actual, like you're locking yourself into $9 million a year for the running back, but it's still a contract that kind of, if you pay attention to the Steelers, whether you're a fan or if you're somebody like me who covers the team, you watch something like that happen. You're like, okay, how is this going to affect the, possible negotiations with Najee Harris? Because that is going to be on the agenda this summer, whether something comes of it or not. It is going to be on the agenda this summer. So it'll be interesting to watch. And so I even posed a question in our Steelers feed yesterday, like 4 years, $36 million, $9 million a year. Najee's the more productive running back than Stevenson is. So I would assume based off of that, Najee sees that, he's probably smiling. He's probably happy that he sees that because he's like, well, I'm a more productive running back than Rhamondre Stevenson. And he just got himself the potential for $36 million, maybe even $48 million, depending on, performance and incentives and stuff like that. And Najee's like, man, if we're talking about hitting, certain numbers and stuff, like there's only 2 running backs in the last 3 years that have more rushing yards than I do. So if I'm Najee Harris, I'm happy right now seeing that. And then if I'm the Steelers, I'll be honest. I'm still puzzled, and that's why I have the episode of today's show. Still puzzled over the Najee decision. I don't understand why they declined the 5th year option. I'm still puzzled by that. I don't think that anyone will get any kind of legitimate answer on that. I think anybody at this point is just guessing. First off, why would the Steelers do that if they really do? And I have every reason to believe that they will at least try to negotiate a long-term deal with Najee this summer. I was told that by a very reliable source on the inside. And so I have every reason to believe that they're going to try to get a contract knocked out. And so why would anybody leak it that, what the answer is of what the real answer is, why they declined the 5th year option? Because right now the only answer we're getting is what Omar says. And that's, and that's, it was a business decision. And just to throw context in case you don't know what we're talking about, Lifted One's asking what happened with Najee. It's just going back to the decision to not pick up his 5th year option at the beginning of May. And so, I'm still puzzled by it because it would have been $6.8 million, like $6.79 million to be exact, to pay him for next year. And it's one thing, and Chris B71 here says it here. It says cap space and long-term deal. Like, it doesn't affect the cap space now because his money was already his money was already locked in for this year. And then when you're talking about a long-term deal, and especially whenever, like, you know, I'm not stupid. Like I know when there's certain things that you're told at a certain time, you understand maybe the reason behind it, right? So the Steelers decline the 5th-year option on Najee, and then an hour later, I have a team source, a very reliable team source, telling me that there's real potential for a long-term deal to be at least negotiated this summer, and that they're going to try to knock it out this summer, at least from the team's end. And so I'm like, okay. So that means that there's like legitimate intention to try to get that done. Or why is somebody on the inside telling me that? Right. And so, but again, it doesn't make sense to me, because if you want the flexibility to, okay, if Najee's just not the best fit in the Arthur Smith offense, whatever the reason is, then why try to negotiate a long-term deal in which you might end up having to pay Najee more than what you would have paid him in the 5th-year option? Now, granted, if they work out a certain, and maybe I'm just kind of realizing this as I'm talking, maybe they can work out a long-term deal and structure it in a certain way in which that first year is cheaper than what the 5th-year option would have been. I mean, it's very possible. Like for example, let's just say hypothetically Najee signs a 4-year, 36, like same contract as Rhamondre Stevenson, but with more guaranteed money, right? Like, let's just say like 27 million or whatever of it is guaranteed, as opposed to, whatever Stevenson get. Like, I think it was less than 20 million. I have to pull up the Steelers feed, and where's my phone? I don't even have my phone next to me. Like, ever. That's like the first time ever. My wife would be like, "You always have your phone on you." But maybe it's more guaranteed money, but you can, always structure the contract in a specific way. And typically a lot of these long-term deals, they're typically backloaded. You don't see a lot of front-loaded contracts, especially with the way the Steelers, structure them. And so maybe that first year, it's kind of like the first year of the Patrick Queen deal. I think it was the Patrick Queen deal, if I'm thinking about it. Let me pull up his contract real quick, because I'm trying to get a good idea, because there's somebody's contract. When I looked at it, I remember seeing like man, that first year is real. Yeah. Okay, so Patrick Queen's contract, I just pulled it up. So he signed a 3-year, $41 million contract. And so, okay, do the math in your head, and you see that that's X amount of money per year. I can't even do it's a little over 13 million a year, not quite 14 million a year. But that first year cap hit is 6.1 million, like way less than what the cap hit will be, than the annual average annual value, the AAV. Now, granted, that means the cap hit for the next 2 years, because of the 3-year deal, are significantly higher at 7.7 and then 7.2 million. But that just goes to show you that maybe if they're really thinking about a long-term deal with Najee, then maybe that first year, maybe that's I'm honestly trying to have like some sort of a like outer dialogue to try to figure out, because I'm still puzzled over it. I just thought that was an easy decision. It gives you more time to possibly negotiate a deal, especially when you're talking about, okay, you're also going to have to possibly negotiate with Pat Freiermuth, because at least you had the option to lock up Najee for another year. You didn't have that with Pat Freiermuth, because they were both in the same draft class. Najee's the first round pick, so you get the 5th-year option with him. You don't get that with Pat. So, and listen, I'm not gonna pretend to know what I'm talking about more than Omar Khan. Omar Khan's the GM. I'm not, right? So, Damon asked a good question. What website can you find contracts? The two most commonly used for NFL is either Spot Track or Over the Cap. They're both pretty reliable. They're both really reliable. Typically, they're a little different in terms of how they calculate cap space, and it's just really, it's too much to try to explain here on the show. I don't want to try to get bogged down too much with that, but Barber saying audio and video aren't in sync on my end. If the same issue is happening with you guys, with everybody else, please let me know. Because I'm not seeing any kind of issues on my end of things. But if we're having issues with the actual broadcast, okay, that's not good. Somebody else is saying same here, Barber. That's interesting. How far off is it? Like how far? Like I'm gonna say a word. Hold on a second. Word. Like let me know how long the gap is before you see it. Because I'm not seeing anything. That's interesting. That's really, really military second. Okay. That sucks. All right. Well, unfortunately, there's not really anything I can do about it. So this might be a show where you have to focus more on the audio more than the video. So I sincerely apologize. This is typically not something that happens very often. So I'll do my very, very best to not go absolutely bananas with the movements and everything like that. So but yeah, I just it's interesting. It's interesting. It's still puzzling to me, but but maybe like in terms of if the Steelers really are going to negotiate a long-term deal, how what does that contract look like for Najee? Because now we have James said, "Don't do that again." I did for those of you who aren't watching, I did a really crazy reaction and everything like that. Just a lot of body movement and everything, just to get people to just messing with people who are dealing with the stuff, trying to make light of the situation. But we might have a baseline for what Najee is going to get. Like if Rhamondre Stevenson can get a contract that, if it plays out, averages $9 million a year, then man, is Najee going to be worth 10, 12? I mean, shoot, like Christian McCaffrey just got $19 million a year. Now, I don't think Najee sniffs that, regardless of the fact that Najee has more rushing yards than Christian McCaffrey over the last 3 seasons. I think we all know that Christian McCaffrey is kind of in a tier on his own in terms of running backs in the NFL right now. That's not a disrespect to Najee Harris. That's just all the respect due to Christian McCaffrey because of just who he is and how talented he is. And rightfully on the cover of Madden 25 because he's an awesome player, awesome running back. So Joshua, dude, member for 13 months. Congratulations, man. Appreciate that. Travis says, seems like wide receivers are making better money than running backs. I'll tell you what, I think just about every position in football, maybe outside of kickers and like punters and like the specialists, I can maybe only think of maybe 1 or 2 positions that are making less money than running backs. Maybe safeties. No, I don't even think safeties. If I had to guess, the really the best way to know, and that's here, I'll Google it right here. 5th-year option numbers for positions. Let's see what we got here. Sorry for the dead air. Just want to get you guys a good number here. According to overthecap.com, 5th-year option projections, but this is for certain specific players. This isn't for positions. I'll try to find it, but yeah, there's no doubt that running backs are being paid. Running backs are being paid significantly less than receivers. I mean, we're talking about, what did Justin Jefferson just get? Like $40 million a year, and Brandon Ayuk wants $30 million a year. Amon-Ra St. Brown got $30 million a year. Like, yes, receivers are 100% getting paid way more than running backs. There's no doubt about that. Yeah, let's see. See if I can find something here, because I know that there was something that came out for what the what the actual number was for each position. And I can't find it right now, and I don't know why. Usually that's like that kind of stuff pops up. Okay, here we go. 2025 fifth year option salaries revealed. Okay, here we go. I found it. All right. So running backs, the fifth year option for running backs in 2025 would have been 11.95 million. So just a hair less than 12 million. Quarterbacks are way more than that at 38.3. Receivers are way above that at 21.82, so nearly 22 million. Tight ends are barely above that at 12.69 million. So a little about, 700,000, almost, 750,000 more than a running back. Offensive linemen. Now, they don't there's not like the difference between tackles and centers and guard. It's just offensive line. Offensive linemen. So because tackles are part of that, that number is going to be higher because tackles get paid like crazy. And nowadays, edge rushers and defensive linemen, like interior linemen, are getting paid like crazy. And so offensive line is 20.99 million. Defensive ends, 21.32 million. Defensive tackles, so like interior linemen, 22.1 million. Linebackers, that's like off-ball linebackers, inside linebackers, that's 24 million. Cornerbacks, 19.8 million, and safeties, 17.12 million. So safeties significantly above. And kickers and punters are 5.98 million. So only kickers and punters are getting paid less than running backs. So running backs have never, I don't think running backs have ever been valued less than they are nowadays. So Beef last kicker or punter ever taken in the first to get a fifth year? Not to my recollection, but it doesn't mean it's never happened. I don't know. I honestly don't know. I would doubt it. And I'm not saying like a kicker or punter has never been taken in the first round. I honestly don't know that off the top of my head. But yeah, it's just funny. But no, of the positions that can realistically be taken in the first round nowadays, running backs are the least valued. And so now if you were to try to break that down into what the average center makes and what the average guard makes and stuff like that, then maybe you can make certain arguments. But I still think even the top tier centers might make more than the top tier running backs, or it might be on par with each other. That wouldn't surprise me whatsoever. So Mr. CJ Jr. brings this up. I saw something about this. He said pretty soon quarterbacks will have a separate salary cap. I saw something about that. I don't know how much validity there is to something like that, but it wouldn't surprise me. Quarterback contracts are starting to get to a completely different stratosphere. Again, Justin Jefferson just got $40 million a year for being the best receiver in football. And I think most people would not argue with that. That's a pretty easy decision right now to say that Justin Jefferson is the best wide receiver in the NFL. And that doesn't sniff what Trevor Lawrence just got. And I think Trevor Lawrence is a really good quarterback. I don't know if I'd quite put him Patrick Mahomes is in his own tier. And then you have that next tier of elite franchise quarterbacks, the group that Josh Allen is in and Joe Burrow's in. And a lot of Steelers fans might not like to say this or even admit this because of his lack of success against the Steelers, but I would put Lamar Jackson in there, especially with the way he's grown as a player, as a quarterback. And because of his dynamic ability to hurt defenses with his arm and his legs, he's just different, right? He forces defenses to defend it differently than anybody else. Just the Steelers know how to do it, and they know how to do it better than anybody, which is why they have the success against them that they do. But that doesn't mean that just because the Steelers are good against them doesn't mean that the rest of the NFL is, because the rest of the NFL is not very good against them. And he was very deserving to win MVP this past season. So you kind of have to put Lamar Jackson in that next, and there's a few others that you would put in that. And then there'd be another tier down. And I don't even know if I would even put Trevor Lawrence in that, You could make an argument for it, but I don't know if I would just be automatically be like, yeah, Trevor Lawrence is in that group no matter what. And his new contract is like, shoot, man, let me pull it up. It's definitely over $50 million a year. Trevor Lawrence contract. Trevor Lawrence got how hard is this, Google? Come on. Like this new AI stuff. 5 years, $275 million, worth up to 282 and a half through incentives. That is massive. Okay, listen to this. Listen to this. This is the cap breakdown for Trevor Lawrence. All right, listen to this. The cap hit this year is just over 15 million. Next year it's 17 million. And then even the year after that, it's 24. Like for a quarterback that you're essentially paying to be your franchise guy, that's a deal. But that contract has an average annual salary of $55 million per year, which means after that, the 4 following years after that, it's cap hits of 35 million, 47 million, and then there's a potential out after that. But if they don't opt out of that, the cap hits are 78.5 million and 74.8 million. Like, we're talking numbers that are just absolute. Like, how long until we start seeing something like that become? I mean, shoot, man, like quarterbacks on Trevor Lawrence's level are getting 55 million a year. It's not going to be that much longer until quarterbacks get over 60 million. It's not too much longer until we see a quarterback get 65 million a year. And so, yeah, like when a report comes out about there being any kind of speculation whatsoever regardless of how much reality it's actually rooted in, shoot, man, it wouldn't surprise me if the NFL got to that point where quarterbacks had a separate salary cap for themselves, man. Yeah, it's just it's and that's why, like, when you think about the Steelers and their situation right now, like, first off, this season they're not paying anything for a quarterback. I mean, they're not paying. They essentially have quarterbacks for free compared to those type of numbers. And like, what if Russell Wilson has a more productive or more efficient year than Trevor Lawrence does? And the funny thing about that is, regardless, and I have my question marks about how Russell Wilson is going to work in the Arthur Smith offense, particularly in terms of how he's going to use the middle of the field, how he's going to utilize tight ends, stuff like that. But I don't think it's out of the realm of possibility to think that Russell Wilson could put up better numbers or numbers on par with what Trevor Lawrence could do. I really don't think that that's a stretch. I'm pulling up Trevor Lawrence's numbers from last year. Maybe I'm off my rocker here. Last year, Trevor Lawrence completed 65.6% of his passes for 4,016 yards, 21 touchdowns, 14 picks. So I know right off the top of my head that Russell Wilson threw more touchdowns and less interceptions than that. So I know that for sure. Now, didn't throw for as many yards, but also didn't throw as many passes. Played in less games than Lawrence did. Lawrence played in 16 games. Russell played in 15, so one less game. But Trevor Lawrence averaged 7.1 yards per attempt. Russell Wilson was 6.9. So not that much less in terms of yards per attempt. That's why I'm saying, like, I don't think it's a, and J Mood says here, for what you're paying the quarterback, like, you have to take salary into account here. For what you're paying the quarterback, even this year with Trevor Lawrence having a $15 million cap hit, Trevor Lawrence at $15 million, or Russell Wilson at the vet minimum at $1.21 million. Who would you rather take based off of those numbers? Now, fit in the offense absolutely matters. I'm not going to try to put things into like that small of a context box because, God, man, yeah. I need to go grab my phone real quick because Everett right here might be coming here with some breaking news here. KZ got cut from the Steelers. Let me check my phone real quick and see if that's this is why I like the one time I don't have my phone. Let's see. I don't have anything in my phone right here. At least let me check. No official announcement from the Steelers. Nothing from Steelers PR. I don't have any text from anybody. I'm not seeing it right now. Not saying that there's not a report out there or anything like that, but I don't have anything right now on that. So, but Travis asked a good question to go back to what we're talking about. So what is Najee worth? Well, the market does dictate what players make for sure. I don't think there's any, I don't think there's any like that's pretty standard stuff. And so if Rhamondre Stevenson just got 4 years, $36 million, and Najee's a more productive running back than that, I think Najee and his representation will, if there's, any kind of, negotiations that happen, either whether they're happening now or like they have every bit to say, yeah, we deserve more money than Rhamondre Stevenson. I mean, look at the numbers, man. Like, look at the production. Like, I don't care if Jaylen Warren's on this team or not. Like, I'm producing numbers even while sharing the workload with the Jaylen Warren. I'm like, if I'm Najee Harris and his like, that's what I'm saying. That's what I said at the beginning of the show. Like, if I'm Najee Harris, I'm smiling right now based off of that contract because you're gonna get more money than that. So that I would say that's a good baseline to start at. Like in terms of getting Najee to re-sign, now you're probably in the realm of you're talking about at least $10 million a year, at least. Like maybe they have certain incentives, maybe they throw more guaranteed money at him. And now that I have my phone by me, I can tell you what the guaranteed money is for that contract from Stevenson because I put it in the Steelers feed. I think it was yesterday. 17 million of that 36 is guaranteed. And we had this conversation on the show a while back. Travis asked here, do we think Najee's a top 5 running back? I'm hesitant to say top 5 or maybe even top 10. I think you could make an argument for like sneaking into the top 10. I think you can make an argument for that. But I think you're talking like absolute bare minimum. He's top 15 for sure. But I don't think he's a top 5 running back. But you can make an argument for top 10, I think. And and production is one thing that you cannot deny. And when we've had the conversation about Najee on here, and other people saying not seeing the KZ stuff. I don't see anything on KZ either. And again, I don't have anything to corroborate that, so I can't say it happened. But to this Najee stuff, like when we've talked about Najee, production's never been something you can argue with. You cannot argue with the numbers. You can't argue with the total numbers that he puts up. You can argue efficiency because 3.9 yards per carry is not very efficient, right? In order to get the yards that he's getting, he's having to carry the ball a lot. He's having to get a certain amount of touches in order to hit those numbers. So you could talk about efficiency, and that's I think the big part of what's Najee's real ceiling here. Like realistically, how good could he be? Because the production's there, but the efficiency is not there. He's having to touch the ball a lot to get the numbers. So the goal there is obviously for him to get similar numbers or maybe even better numbers while touching the ball less. And so now I also wrote about it in a Chalk Talk a couple weeks ago. There's also a lot of factors that have been, kind of plaguing Najee throughout his NFL career so far. And that, offensive line play is a big one. The biggest one being Matt Canada's offense. It's not the telegraphing of plays, the number of stacked boxes that Najee's having to run into, because when Najee's on the field, teams know that they're running the football. 52% of the time when Najee was on the field, the Steelers ran the football. Compared to when Jaylen Warren was on the field, it was only 35% of the time they ran the football. So that told defenses right then and there, okay, when Najee's on the field, there's a good chance they're going to run the ball. Like 1 out of 2 times they're going to run the football. And that's a lot more than nearly one out of 3 times. It's a lot more. So offensive line play for sure. Offensive coordinator for sure. I think you can make an argument about every player being handicapped by Matt Canada's offense. Kenny Pickett included. And I understand that there's some people that are, still very, very pro Kenny that hear that and be like, yes, it was Matt Canada. But then there are also anti-Kenny people that be like, no, Kenny still had his flaws. I think there's a little bit of both there. And I think that Matt Canada absolutely, definitely handcuffed Kenny, handcuffed Najee, handcuffed even Jaylen. Like what is Jaylen capable of if he's in a different offense? Like, is there another level to Jaylen's game? Because right now, like, shoot, man, there were only 2 players last year that averaged a higher yards per carry than Jaylen Warren did in the entire NFL. Like that is insane. So, yeah, I think when it comes to Najee, you're looking at least $10 million a year. Maybe they can do something like 4 years, $40 million. It's hard to put a number on it right now. The only thing that I could say is that the absolute baseline, no matter what, that I think you have to start at is above what Rhamondre Stevenson just got, because I don't think there's anybody who's realistically going to argue that Najee is a lesser running back than Rhamondre Stevenson. And unfortunately for the Steelers, when another team pays a running back a certain amount, you kind of have to compare Najee to that running back and then think accordingly. Okay, if the Steelers are really going to work out a long-term deal with Najee, this is what it might have to take. So, and if they get him for anything less than that, you just count your lucky stars, because I don't think that's going to happen now. So, Randy asked a good question. I'll dedicate like maybe the next 10 minutes or so to some Q&A here. Really quick, I gotta mute the mic for a second. Man, talking for 33 minutes straight without taking a break will take a lot out of you. So, it was a really good question here. I was just I didn't want to miss it. Randy asked a good question. Are the Steelers going to run play action this year? If so, doesn't play action help the running backs? Play action helps the offense overall. First off, it helps the running backs. It helps the passing game. Linebackers have to freeze even for just a half a second on play action. So it really, really does help everything. And the main part of your question, are the Steelers going to run play action this year? The answer to that, based off of what Arthur Smith has done in previous offenses, is yes. A lot more play action. And I will go back to one of my previous Chalk Talks right here live for you and give you those numbers. Now you can go, I urge you to go read the Chalk Talk in its entirety if you haven't yet. Let's see here. I think this was the one on Najee, actually. I'm going to go back through. It was near the end. Yes. Okay. So it was the Chalk Talk on Najee. So this was 3 Chalk Talks ago. Last season, the Falcons used play action 41.9% of the time, which is the second highest percentage in the league. So that is 41.9% of their passing attempts were play action. So compare that to the Steelers, 22.6% of their passing attempts were on play action. Only 5 teams thread a play action less often. That's a big jump. Even if they were to go up to 35 or 36%, it's a big jump based off of what the Steelers did last year and what they did under Matt Canada to just overall. So, yeah, it's I would anticipate a lot more play action. That'll help with the getting the ball to the tight ends. That'll help getting the ball down the field. There are a lot of different things you can do out of play action. And so I would anticipate a lot more play action. It's one thing to kind of speculate, like maybe Arthur Smith incorporates more gap concepts in the running game than he has in the past, just to kind of go with what other offensive minds are doing who have had a lot of success with wide zone, but what guys such as Kyle Shanahan and Sean McVay have done recently. They've been doing a lot, like they recently switched to more gap concepts. It's one thing to speculate that, but there are certain fundamental principles that offensive coordinators have in their systems, and play action is obviously one of them. And I don't see Arthur Smith going away from play action at all. I really don't. I'm not promising that they're going to run play action nearly 42% of the time, but it'll be more than what the Steelers did last year. And I would very, very strongly bet considerably more. And they need to. Play action on first down is almost a cheat code nowadays. It really is. So let's see. Travis asked a good question here. I saw an argument yesterday on Sports News of who should be the quarterback one to start the season, Russ or Fields. Well, I don't know about who should be the starter. We know who is in pole position to start, and that would obviously be Russell Wilson. I do think that there is going to be an actual quarterback competition to a certain extent. I don't know if it'll quite be the quarterback competition that we were promised in 2022, even though it might be more like the 2022 quarterback competition. Like there was a lot of talk about Kenny competing for that backup spot or possibly even the starting job, when we all knew Mitch Trubisky was going to be the starter. We all knew that. It really didn't matter. But we all knew that Mitch was going to be the starter. And so it might be more like that. But I do think that the Steelers are going to pay very, very close attention to what Justin Fields does in Arthur Smith's offense, because I think Arthur Smith's offense, based off of what we've seen of it in Tennessee and Atlanta, what I've seen from it in Tennessee and Atlanta, is that Justin Fields' skill set can very, very much fit in this offense. And I even said, so whenever I did a radio hit on Fox Sports Radio in South Dakota a couple days ago, I was asked if Russell Wilson's going to start the year and end the year as the starting quarterback. And I said, I actually have a small feeling that Justin Fields might be the starter by the end of the season. And it wouldn't shock me if that happens, because I have a feeling that if Justin Fields gets his opportunity in this offense, he might actually just give the Steelers you can't go back to Russ. And the Steelers aren't committed to these quarterbacks past the season. So if they find their guy and it's Justin Fields, you can't. It's what Mike Tomlin did with Mason Rudolph down the stretch last season. You can't switch back. If Justin Fields, if Russell Wilson misses a game because of an injury or anything like that, and Justin Fields goes in and he looks like a guy you've never seen in the NFL, or at least at the NFL level, you got to run it back. Okay, was that just a fluke, or you got to run it back? Because the intrigue is there, because it would behoove the Steelers. It would benefit the Steelers way more if Justin Fields panned out than if Russell Wilson panned out, because they can commit long-term to Justin Fields. You only have so many years of Russell Wilson left. Dude's 35. You only have so many years of Russell Wilson left. Justin Fields is significantly younger. It would be the best case scenario here is for somehow Justin Fields to prove himself to be the franchise guy. to be the franchise quarterback. The best case scenario would have been for Kenny Pickett to not be a bust or be traded after 2 seasons, because you spent a first round pick on a quarterback. You want to make sure that's a guy. And obviously that didn't work out. So now the best case scenario would be to have somebody who's on the roster now be the next guy. And the best person for that would be Justin Fields because of his age. You only have so many years of Russell Wilson left. So, and Travis follows up here and says they said Fields could play a slash role too. The Steelers have not said that. Right now, the only thing the Steelers are, that is all speculation from other media outlets or anything like that. The Steelers have not talked about Justin Fields being like the next slash. That is speculation, and sure, it could happen. And if there's like any quote or anything like that is like, yes, it's intriguing and something like that. But the plan right now is to get them get the quarterbacks through the process of getting the offense installed. That is what goes on during OTAs and minicamp. That is you're not talking about experimenting with Justin Fields, who is a new quarterback coming in to learn a new system, who could very well be playing meaningful snaps this season at some point. I mean, you have to assume that might happen at some point, whether it be because Russell Wilson either isn't cutting it, like it just doesn't work, or he gets injured and Fields has to step in. Like, you need this guy to know the offense as a quarterback before you start talking about him doing anything else. And so the fact that they are committed to Justin Fields learning the quarterback position, like, maybe that's something they can entertain down the road. Like, after Justin Fields already knows the offense inside out, backwards, frontwards, in every single direction, maybe that's something that they can do. So I don't see that happening. I don't care who said it. I don't see that happening. I really don't. And especially, I know Jaylen Warren said what he said, and I'm sure as soon as Jaylen Warren said it, there were a lot of Steelers coaches that like rolled their eyes or doubled over. They're like, "Oh, why'd you say that about Justin Fields returning kicks and stuff?" Come on, like, if it happens, man, I'll be the first one to admit that I'm wrong, but it's not happening, man. And if it happens, it's because they have some sort of weird play designed for it. That's all I'm saying. Right now, the Steelers really, really need their quarterbacks to learn the system, because right now everybody's learning the system, Brent. Like, it doesn't matter if you're heading into your first season with the Steelers, or if you're a Pat Freiermuth or Najee Harris or anybody else who's, been with the Steelers for multiple seasons. Everybody is learning this offense. This is a brand new offense for everybody. And so everybody just have to learn their role in the offense at their position before you can start talking about doing any extracurriculars like that. The only person that you'd probably be talking about multiple positions would be a guy such as like maybe Connor Hayward or Cordarrelle Patterson, who have a history already, whether it be Connor Hayward's very short NFL career so far, or Cordarrelle Patterson's already proven ability to sometimes line up in the backfield, sometimes line up as a wide receiver, whatever it is. Like, these are guys who have shown at the NFL level, who actually have put it on tape at the NFL level that they can play multiple positions. Those are the guys. So I would love to have this conversation. So I would love to have this conversation, and maybe I can get Williamson to come on the show one day. Maybe that's a good thing, because he says, per Matt Williamson, Najee isn't good with outside zone, and Jaylen excels at it. Arthur Smith likes outside zone, hence no 5th year. I would love. You know what? I'm gonna text Matt Williamson. I'm gonna try to get him on the show. I'm gonna text him after the show. I'm trying to get him on the show, like maybe sometime next week. And maybe we can have this discussion then. Because he knows the game at a level that I don't. Like, I feel like I know the game at a certain level, but he knows, hey, listen, and Frank is already coming here and saying, get him, Chris. Listen, I'm going to say it right here, and I'll go back to this. Matt Williamson knows the game more than I do. 100%. I'm not going to try to sit here and pretend that I know it better. The dude's been an NFL scout, like been employed to be an NFL scout, like not happening. I don't know more than Matt does. And Crispy says Matt's on vacation. Well, we'll get him eventually. The numbers themselves in terms of Najee running outside zone, he averaged, so I mentioned it earlier, his career average overall for yards per carry is 3.9 yards per carry. And he averages 4.3 yards per carry in outside zone over the past 2 seasons. And that's not like, holy crap, he was really good one year and really crappy another year, and it just averaged out to, no, it was 2022. He averaged 4.3 yards per carry in outside zone. And then last year, 4.3 yards per carry in outside zone. So it's consistent, and it's better than his overall average. So he actually averages more yards per carry running that than he does running everything else altogether. So, and then when you look at Najee's splits, or sorry, Jaylen's splits between gap and man, or sorry, gap and zone, Jaylen's, his gap numbers are ridiculous, and his zone numbers are like, I don't have those exact numbers in front of me, but I promise you I've done my homework on that. Jaylen's gap numbers are way better than his zone numbers. So the numbers themselves say that Najee can work in the outside zone. And there are examples of it, even as recent as last season, in which Najee shows the ability to make the right read and the right cut while running an outside zone concept. It happened in one of his best runs against Seattle last year. I think they were running Zorro, and Najee made the exact right read, outside zone, your primary, or even wide zone, your primary target, your primary aiming point is the outside, the backside pretty much of the tight end on the play side. And that is where you're starting to run at the start of the play. Now you have to be able to read, okay, what are the linebackers doing? Are they over pursuing? If they're over pursuing and the center has the right leverage on his reach block, then you cut back up the middle and you hit up the middle. If the entire defense is over pursuing, then you cut back against the whole thing and you run back the other way. And obviously, if the offensive line gets up, and if they get horizontal and vertical, and they're already pushing back on the defense as they're going horizontal, then you just hit your aiming point and you trust your blockers. So there's a lot of different ways, and that's why zone can be so good. And in that particular run that I'm talking about in Seattle, he's aiming for his typical aiming point. He saw both Bobby Wagner and Devin Bush over pursue, and then cut back on the inside of the tight ends, both of the tight ends. And it was the perfect spot to cut back. And because he then ended up hitting and Mr. CJ Jr. says Najee hesitates too much. It doesn't happen as often as you think, because that particular run, now granted, this is one run, I get it. And yes, there are times he does hesitate too often. That particular one, he saw exactly where he was supposed to cut. He cut and he hit it hard. And next thing you know, he's running down the field carrying guys on his back. And so, and Jaylen is, I will say, and this is where, because Travis says it here, I love seeing Jaylen run. He runs hard, he twists and turns and jukes really well. And the thing that makes Jaylen good for an outside zone, and which is why I would like to see Jaylen run in a better coached wide zone offense or outside zone, whatever it is he does have that ability to put a foot in the ground and go. And his acceleration out of it is phenomenal. And that really is what it takes in outside zone. He has the speed to get to the outside if he needs to. He also has the ability to put a foot in the ground and cut back against the grain, or cut up the middle, or cut back completely against the defense. And so, and listen, this can get really, really, and this is where I'm even seeing it in the chat right now. This is where the chat can get really Najee versus Jaylen, and it doesn't have to be that way. It really doesn't. They and right here says it right here. I think they complement each other really good. They do. take advantage of what you have. If you're a Steelers fan, take it. And Frank K says best 1-2 punch in the league. I don't know if I would just go ahead and just flat out say it's the best, but it is one of the best for sure. And one thing you can definitively say to back that up, for if you're ever having that conversation at a local bar or at your job or anything like that, the one thing you can definitively say is this, that this lightning and thunder combination is one of 2 running back duos last season that were in which each running back attained 1,000 yards from scrimmage. Only the Lions and the Steelers had 2 running backs do that. And so you have Najee who can hit you in different ways, and then Jaylen is perfect change of pace. They do complement each other so well, and excuse me, it is so easy to get into that, like, because there are some people that love the way Jaylen runs and the way that like those runs that I think about against the Ravens, in which he's just bouncing off and it looks like he's going down and somehow he maintains his balance. He's able to keep going. Like those type of runs get you excited and you'd be like, man, Jaylen needs to be running the ball more. And then like maybe 5 carries later, or maybe even the next week, Najee just looks like that dude again. Right. And then you're like, man, but when Najee's running like this, it's like, you can't take him out. And that's why I think that like you just keep this duo together for as long as you possibly can, as long as you're not having to overpay for it. And that's why you get into the whole, hey, we got to pay Najee and we got to pay Jaylen, because Jaylen, as an undrafted free agent, is entering the last year of his deal, even though he's going into his 3rd year. Undrafted free agents sign 3-year deals. They don't sign 4-year deals. And so he's going into his last year. And so that's another thing the Steelers have to, but the good thing is he'll be a restricted free agent. So depending on what type of tender they put on him, they maintain rights to the player and can match and stuff. So, yeah, it instead of trying to pick one, like, man, I really love Jaylen. They can afford to lose Najee. Man, keep this together for as long as you can. If it's possible to keep it together, then do that, because it's a great running back duo right now. And definitely one of the best in the league for sure. So, and hey, Frank makes a really good point here when it comes to Najee. Najee gets really valuable when the weather starts getting colder. And he says like Najee's best trait is that he literally gets better throughout the season, and people don't want to tackle him when it's cold. It's also the fact that he's there every single game. Like he hasn't missed a game. Now, knocking on wood for you guys. Not gonna sit here and try to get the jinx police after me. But Najee's been able to play every single game so far in his career. Again, knocking on wood for you. He's been available. And he's there. He's there every single game. And as Frank said there, that really, really helps whenever you're starting to play and he's durable. He's durable, and the thing is that he has definitely played through injuries. He played with a steel plate in his cleat in 2022 for the first sizable portion of the season. So, yeah, dude, it's a good running back duo to have. It's a great thing for the Steelers to have, for sure. Don't enjoy it for as long as you can, because this very well could be the last season in which you have Najee and Jaylen together. It really could be. And just based off of contract situations, it's the business part. Steelers could have tried to keep it together for another year if they would have just picked up his 5th-year option and been able to re-sign Jaylen somehow. But going back to kind of like sum up, because we're way over time now. The only thing that really makes sense to me is that the Steelers want to maintain flexibility for what they want to dictate, for what they want to do. They want to see what Najee looks like in Arthur Smith's offense. But if they sign him long-term, it's just, the only thing that makes sense to me is flexibility moving forward. That's the only thing. It's the same type of flexibility that they kind of wanted to have whenever they were when they were trying to negotiate like with Mike Wallace back in the day, and that didn't work out. So they gave the long-term contract to Antonio Brown, and Lord knows that was the best decision the Steelers made at that time, because Antonio Brown turned into the best receiver in the league. And as good as Mike Wallace was, he was never at that level. Like Antonio Brown hit a level that we haven't seen. Like Justin Jefferson might be the first guy to really start hitting that level that Antonio Brown was at. Since Antonio Brown obviously, went off the deep end, and, everything went down and after he left Pittsburgh, or I should say forced his way out of Pittsburgh. So, which, by the way, really quick about Antonio Brown. If you haven't, go back and watch yesterday's Ramon show. Ramon, really, really good thoughts on Antonio Brown, his most recent appearance on the Pivot with Ryan Clark. Antonio Brown had some very, Antonio Brown comments on the show, but also probably one of the better interviews that I've seen Antonio Brown be a part of since that whole situation went down. And Ramon has better insight on this than anybody else here. So definitely go back and watch that if you haven't. Yeah, absolutely worth your time if you haven't. And if you did, you know what I'm talking about. So, all right. Appreciate you guys. Thank you so much for tuning in. This is a long show. We nearly hit an hour. Yeah. So I made it up to you guys for being really late yesterday and being just a few minutes late today. We went way over today. But appreciate you guys. Have a great weekend. Enjoy the summer, whatever you're doing this summer. Enjoy the weekend. Enjoy the summer. Be back Monday. I am going to text Matt Williamson, because I would love to have not just a conversation about like Najee and stuff like that, but I would love to have conversations with Matt about a lot of stuff, because, I've, shot the crap with him, whether it be at the combine or anywhere else, any training camp or anything like that. Always have really fun conversations with Williamson. He's a good dude. Would love to have him on. So I'll text him, and we'll maybe try to get that worked out for you guys. Would love to have. And actually, if you want to, there has been a time where he was on the show. It was during the combine, not this past year, but the year before. Like, it wasn't on this show, but it was. So yeah, it wasn't on this show, but it was on our YouTube channel. So you might be able to go way back to, like, I don't know. It would have been early March of 2023. Me and Matt it was from the combine. It was really low quality video, but it was a good football conversation. And so I've always loved talking with football with Matt. So we'll see if we can get him on here. So thank you, everybody. Appreciate you guys. Have a good weekend. Catch you guys on the flippity flip.